guys, and you can just review it over and over. All right, so for those of you who have no clue who I am, my name is Jonathan Zabrocki, and I'm a realtor just like you guys. Last year I did 29.2 million in sales. This year, I'll do very well as also. I've been a realtor for 14 years, and I was just looking at my board up top here, and so far I'm at 374 million in sales. So my first 2 years I worked really, really hard, probably 100 hours a week, but I struggled through it, right? I did maybe 10 million my first year, 14 million my second year, and I pretty much told my wife, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get a different job, or I got to do real estate a different way, because this is just crazy. And so basically between my second and third year, I invested a lot of money and a lot of time into business coaches, not real estate coaches, but people that could really help me transform my business into an actual business that's sustainable. And that third year I did a little over 27 million in sales, and my hours went from about 100 hours a week down to about 50 hours a week, which for me was like amazing. And then I've just been perfecting that system year in and year out. And I've done it in 2 different markets, one Minneapolis, Minnesota, and now here in San Diego. And probably in the last 11 months, I've been teaching this type of stuff nationally to realtors around America. And on my real estate group, because I've started 2 real estate companies, I've hired 104 realtors, and I've taught them these things. And they're like, you got to teach this stuff to people, you know, not in your local area, but just to people that want to learn how to just crush it in real estate, and really how to create an ELF business, which to me is easy, lucrative, and fun. And that's really what my signature system is all about. It's very proven, it's very simple, and it's very complete. So it's not like you need to go to 7 different places to get different components to it. It's a one-stop machine. All right, so before I actually dive into what I really, really want to talk about today, I want to talk about these 4 things, which this weekend I was reminded of them because I got to hang out with 3 realtors that basically, 2 of them I took from 0 sales to 100 million plus producers. And the other gentleman, Brad, I took him from wanting to quit real estate to basically just loving what he does. And the 4 top success factors they told me, the things that they most valued about myself and about my signature system, is number 1, have no guilt and no shame. And sometimes we just have, we hold ourselves back from our own success. Does that make sense? Because we feel guilt or we feel shame in maybe reaching out to our friends a certain way, or reaching out to leads a certain way. Number 2 is no fear. So one of the things that I'm big on is I want to do the right stuff in the right way with the right frame of mind. And part of that means having no fear. Kind of like just do it. And then number 3 is a total unwavering clarity of purpose. And so what that means to me is I'm very, very clear on what I want my 5-year, my 10-year, my 25-year lifestyle to look like. And that means I have to take actions today that are probably not short-term thinking, but are medium to long-term thinking. And then also, I see Karen and Brian are here. Hey, Karen and Brian. Karen and Brian are coming to the 3-day event in like a couple of weeks. That's awesome. And then number 4 is to really have structure. And most realtors, including myself, My first 2 years in the business, I didn't have structure. My structure was just work and work and work some more. And so the top 4 success factors are, again, no guilt, no shame. Number 2 is no fear. Number 3 is a total unwavering clarity of purpose. And number 4 is structure. So one of the things today that I want to cover is one of the lead categories, which basically I love. And it's a very inexpensive category to put into place. Basically, it's open houses. And we've probably all done open houses before, but I want to contrast, I guess, the way I do an open house and the way a traditional realtor does an open house. The way a traditional realtor does an open house is many times they'll put up like 20, 25 signs. They'll tie up balloons. They'll get all kinds of snacks ready. They'll bring in all kinds of beverages. They'll spend hours ahead of time doing all kinds of stuff to get ready for the open house. My way of doing an open house is I usually have 2 to 3 open house signs. I put it on an open house on the MLS. I also put it on Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, and that's it. And then I just show up. And the way I do an open house is I'm flipping to my guide to your success. This is this manual I wrote, which talks about this strategy and every other strategy that I use. But on page 61, it talks about, I'll put it there so you can see that. But on page 61, whoa, bless you. On page 61, it talks about how an open house is actually conducted. And so when I do an open house, I should go back a little bit, because sometimes realtors are like, I don't have an open house, like I don't have any listings. Awesome. So you can do an open house on any house in America. It doesn't have to be your listing. So hypothetically, if I didn't have any, and for me, I like to do $900,000 to probably $1.5 million properties. That's kind of my sweet spot. And so hypothetically, if I didn't have any of those, I would probably have to call anywhere from 3 to 20 realtors in my area that had or that have $1 million property. And if I got dropped into Kentucky where I don't know anybody, I would do the same thing, right? And my phone call would be really simple. It would be, hey, my name's Jonathan. I'm a realtor just like you. I see you got this house listed in Kentucky on 123 Main Street. I'd like to do an open house at that property for you on Saturday from noon to 2. Would that be okay with you? And that other realtor is either going to say yes or say no. And if the realtor says no, I might say, well, are there any other realtors in your office who have a similar type of property that would appreciate me doing an open house for them? And if the realtor says no, then I say, awesome. All right, have a great day. See ya, bye. And I don't let their not wanting me to do an open house for them cause me to crumple up my 4 secret factors to success. Does that make sense? Like, I don't have any guilt or shame calling a realtor to say, can I do an open house for you? Because the worst that they're going to tell me is no, right? Now, again, I might have to call 3 realtors. I might have to call 20. But one of them is going to say, yeah, you can do an open house for me. And so now I'm doing a $900,000 open house in Kentucky. And let's say I'm brand new to the area, so I'm just going to go buy 2 open house signs from Home Depot and put them in the yard, and away I go. And now when somebody comes into the open house, I'm going to follow the dialogue on page 61, and I'm going to say, welcome to your new home. And they're probably going to be a little shocked by that. and I'm going to probably put my hand out. I'll say, hey, my name's Jonathan, and you are, and they're going to tell me their name. They're going to shake my hand, and we have a friendly interaction going on. And the next thing I'll say is, what brings you in today? You know, what's the best house that you've seen today or this week? I'll describe the house for about 5 to 15 seconds, and then I'll tell them, hey, take a look around. If you have any questions, let me know, and that's it. And then I'll go back to the kitchen table, and I'm just going to mute you, Josh, but if you have any questions, unmute yourself. Now I'll go back to the kitchen table. I'll grab the latest book I'm reading, and I'll read my book for about 2 to 4 minutes, and then I'll go find them. And I'll go find them. I'll say, hey, so what'd you think? And they're going to say, we either like the house or we don't. And then I'll say, okay, cool. Is this a house that you'd like to buy? And they're either going to say yes or no. And if they say, yeah, it's a house we want to buy, then I get out my purchase agreement and write an offer. If they say, no, it's not a house we want to buy, then I would ask more questions, such as like, well, in a perfect world, what are you looking for? And then they're going to tell me. And then basically I'm going to let them know I'm a professional real estate consultant by the words I use and the questions I ask, which is really page 57 of my guide to your success. I'm going to be very, very focused on asking these questions that are highlighted. And these questions are, I can't read upside down, but these questions are like, what has you thinking of moving? In a perfect world, what price range have you been considering? I understand you got a lot of choices out there. I also know I best help my clients buy, and then I'm going to start filling in the blank. And I'm going to fill in the blank with my green machine. And I got my green machine, which has like basically my life. It's got my ideal calendar in it. It's got my lead and IC tracker, my daily tasks. But this is what I really want to focus on with them. So I want to go over my 3 promises to them. I want to go over, and I say this verbatim. As my newest client, these are 3 things I'm going to be doing with you and for you, and then kind of go over this. I think it's really important to say as my newest client because it tells people I'm very serious. And if they don't want to be my newest client, that's okay too. I'm still going to keep going forward. And I'm going to say, bottom line, I'm going to get the job done for you, not going to let you down. Hey, Rick, good to see you. Rick's coming to the 3-day event too.
Jonathan?
Hello, hello. I'm going to then go over my performance guarantees for buyers. I'm going to go over my performance guarantees for sellers. And in a perfect world, I'm going to go over 7 questions that really go deep into, do they want to buy a house or do they not want to buy a house? Or better yet, should I give them the advice of, hey, it just isn't a good time for you to buy a house, right? So that's what I do for open houses, and I've coached realtors to do this type of signature system now for, gosh, well over 13 years, and nationally now for about 11 months, give or take. And I tell you, it's really cool. The stuff works. Realtors that put this stuff into practice get a result. Realtors who don't put this stuff into practice, they don't get a result. It's pretty simplistic. So awesome. Does anybody have any questions on this open house strategy? And you might be muted, so you might have to unmute yourself. All right, going once, just going twice. There gotta be some quiet. It can't be that easy, right? Yashu, do you mind telling people about how you put this strategy into practice this last weekend?
Yeah, so last weekend I did an open house, and a lady came in, was the very first lady came in the house, and basically she looked around, and I prepared a package, and as she's leaving, I gave it to her, and then I just said, this is the brochure on the home, and then here's the information for you. This is what I do for my buyers, and I went through the 3 buyers, my buyers performance guarantees, and my promises. And she says, I already have it. I already have an agent. And I said, no problem here. Why don't you just go ahead and take this? It's ready for you. Just take it and be left with it. About an hour later, her husband came back in, and he goes like, okay, what were your performance guarantees and stuff like that? And so I went through the performance guarantees, and then they've decided to make an offer on the home. So we have an offer on the home, and in the negotiation stages right now. It's a $470,000 home.
Nice, awesome. I mean, simple, right? So that's like a I don't even know. I'm trying to calculate what this is. 470 times, call it 2.5%. So yeah, probably about a $12,000 commission. You're just putting one of these strategies into place, and that strategy, from start to end, within 4 hours, you made about $12,000. That's awesome. Kudos to you, Yashu.
No, thanks to you. I learned that from you, man. Otherwise, if the old days, lady would have said, I'm working with a client, with an agent, I probably would have said, okay, fine, thank you, and just given her the brochure. She would have left, but just making sure, like you mentioned, going through the performance guarantees, even when they say that and everything, obviously it helped here and got that deal rolling for us.
Nice. Beautiful. And oh my gosh, if you replicate that and do that again this weekend, I would say there's a good chance that you're going to make another $12,000, if not more.
Well, that's the goal. Going to run. Still going to do 2 more open houses this weekend. So
nice, beautiful, awesome, Yashu. All right. So, anybody got any questions on this open house stuff? So you got somebody like me who's been doing it for 12 years. You have someone like Yashu who's been doing it one time, and one time gets a nice $12,000 commission. Oh, Alex has got a question. What did he give the client? Okay, right here. So what I type up, it's just this. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's for me at least, it's on a very basic piece of paper, but it says, hey, here's my 3 promises. And my 3 promises, well, gosh, I wish, okay, so I gotta say this. If you haven't signed up for the 3-day event, sign up, because we spend 3 solid days going over this stuff. But the cursory stuff is, these are my 3 promises. I'm gonna be on time. I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I'm gonna do what I say I'm gonna do. And then I give this to the clients. So I say, I'm gonna consult with you, negotiate for you, handle all the details with verbiage behind it, meaning like what it is. And I say, bottom line, I'm gonna get the job done, not gonna let you down. I go over my buyer performance guarantees. Whoops. And then I also have my seller performance guarantees. And these are things we talk about at that 3-day event. So that's Alex, what Yashu gives to people, what my other coaching clients give to people, and what I give to people when I do an open house. And I tell people it's like this. It's not only what you give them, it's how you give it to them. Does that make sense? It's like Disneyland is very successful because they got a really good product, but they got really good service, right? And that's really with every company. So like Apple Computer, good product, but good service. So the product for a realtor is, yeah, you got to have these kind of things to give to people, but it's how you give it to them. And the way you give it to them, going back to this, like no guilt, no shame, no fear. Does that make sense? Because remember, Yashu said this couple came in and said, we already have a realtor. And it went in one ear and out the other. And Yashu said, okay, that's great. Still take a look around, right? Many times what I say is I might say, oh, so did you sign this 3-page piece of paper that says exclusive right to represent, where you initial here, you signed here, you know, you initialed down here, you signed here, and you gave your blood sample here, right? Most buyers have not done that. Most buyers are just telling you we're working with a realtor because they don't want to be bothered by you, right? You haven't provided what I call enough value, which, going back to Guide to Your Success, which is this manual that I created to help me solve my problems when I was a realtor in the early days, is right here, right? Most realtors struggle because they don't have enough value to give to somebody. When you don't provide enough value, you struggle in real estate. You struggle getting leads, you struggle converting leads, and you struggle giving a VIP experience. So over the 3-day event, and with the coaching that I do, we're crazy focused on providing value, which is what the Green Machine does, right? And there's 7 pages to it that really, really attract Joe Q consumer to anybody that uses my signature system, right? It's not my beautiful blue eyes or my receding hairline. You know, thank goodness my wife loves me no matter what. It's really my signature system, right? It's the value that I'm providing to people. So, yeah. Any other questions on that? Not my receding hairline, but any other questions on the open house stuff?
How do you package that, your 3 promises, Jonathan? Do you just put that on a piece of paper? You put it on your letterhead? What do you do?
Yeah, right here. That's it.
Just like that?
Yeah, and this paper is nothing fancy. It's, you know, the Costco paper for, you buy it in a big box. It's like 5,000 sheets of paper. But because, again, I could make it fancier, but you got to realize that this is my CRM, you know, with the duct tape down the middle. I mean, I'm pretty simple. And the reason I'm really simple is I want to work as little as possible, but make as much income as possible so that I can truly spend like quality time with my wife, my 4 kids, my friends, my family. Does that make sense? It's like if somebody's looking for a realtor that's all really polished up, that probably means I got to do all kinds of song and dance for them throughout the process. And it's like, man, that just sounds like a lot of work. Like, some of you guys have probably seen me now on video like 5, 6 times. I mean, have I ever worn anything besides my short sleeve shirt? All right. It's like at the 3-day event, I usually wear a long sleeve shirt the first day and maybe the second day. And then I'm just like, I can't handle it anymore. I got to get back to my short sleeve shirt, you know? And so, so yeah, if you could, Rick, type it up real nice. I just do this and I staple them together. So it's kind of like a packet. So it's like 7 pages, but generally I don't give it to them. It's the presentation of it. Does that make sense? And so it's like, you know, I open up my binder and I flip through each page like it's the most valuable piece of paper ever, right? So, oh my gosh, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but here's my 3 promises. You know, I'm always going to be on time. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And if I ever don't do those things, I owe you $100. And I always have $100 on me. Usually I have a lot more than 100, but I tell them that I owe you $100, right? and then I flip the page like it's a wedding stationery, right? So I flip it and then, lay it out nice and flat. And as my newest client, gosh, there's 3 things I'm going to be doing with you and for you. And I go over them like I'm talking about a $25,000 carat ring, right? And then I flip the page, so like bottom line, guys, I'm going to get the job done for you, and I'm not going to let you down. And during that whole process, an open house buyer or seller, or any lead for that matter, because I use this for any lead interaction, they might be like, hey, we just want to see the house. Hey, we're not interested in that. Okay, no problem. Does that make sense? I'm probably not going to ask that person for their information because I don't even want to follow up with them. Does that kind of make sense? It's like if we sold wedding jewelry, we probably don't want to sell to the person who's price shopping.
Mhm.
We probably want to sell to the person who is like, I just want to get a really quality ring for my significant other to show them how much I appreciate them. So that's what this does. It almost, what it does for me, Rick, it really allows me to almost eliminate people without me being like mean.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. I like that a lot.
And it goes back to this part, though. It's like I do it like with no guilt, no shame, and no fear. Meaning like somebody could walk in and they're fully tattooed, 400 pounds, and to me I might be like, I don't know if I should tell this person my promises because he might not be interested. And I do the same thing if somebody walks in flip-flops, right? It's like I get out of judgment, I get into curiosity, and it's 100% all about them.
Yeah.
And I believe that every person that I interact with, they're going to be my newest client until they prove otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think as traditional realtors, it's really easy to, well, as human beings, it's easy to judge people on all kinds of things. And it's like, wow, yeah, let it go. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions? Hey, John, good to see you. Oh my gosh, we got like 1, 2, 3, 4 Freedom Club members on the call. This is awesome. Any other questions on this open house strategies? All right. Well, then I got to give a 2-minute plug to come to my 3-day event. And then after this, I'll open it up for Q&A on anything. You guys can ask me anything you want. But the 3-day event, it's 100% me. It's no theory. It's no outside speakers. It's no like, hey, I'm going to sell you this or sell you that. It's like you either want the full, complete everything or not, right? And we focus on 4 things. The triangle behind me shows it. We focus on attracting premium leads. We focus on converting those leads into an initial consultation and then into a buyer or a seller if you want to work with them, right? So just because you have an initial consultation with someone doesn't mean that you still need to work with them. The 3rd thing we focus on is delivering a VIP experience. And then the 4th thing, which is the center of the triangle, is you. And that's where we're focusing on these 4 things. No shame, no guilt, no fear, getting ultra clear on what you want, and then setting up structure so that you're just doing it repetitively. And over time, you're doing it in such a way, just like I did earlier in my career, where I could make 27 million in sales and work 50 hours a week. Then I was like, gosh, I wonder if I could make 35 million in sales a year and work 40 hours a week. Then it was like, I wonder if I could drop that down to 30 hours a week, right? That's my mission. And to me, that's what I consider an easy, lucrative, and fun way to have a real estate business. I got an email from a good friend of mine, and he teaches realtors how to do 500 transactions a year. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'd pull all my hair out, right? Like I want to, in reality, I want to help 25 buyers and sellers a year, and like that's it, you know. And so to me, then that just means I gotta make sure my price point is at a level that I earn the income that I want, meaning I really can't help out $200,000 buyers and sellers if I only want to help out 25 clients. Does that make sense? And that's the cool part of this open house strategy, is that you can pick $1 million price point, and you could do an open house this Saturday at $1 million price point. It just requires you to pick up the phone and call 3 to 20 realtors who have those type of listings and say the dialogue I just did, which is, hey, I'm a realtor just like you. I see you got this open house on 123 Avenida Florencia. I'd like to do an open house on Saturday from noon to 2. Would that be okay with you? And they might say, well, you're not even in the same company. And I go, correct, I'm not in your same company. And, you know, either can I do an open house for you or not? And it's like either way is okay. Does that make sense? I'm not there to convince that realtor to let me do it. I'm there just to ask. And if they want, they'll let me do it. And if they don't, then I just make the next phone call to the next realtor who has that type of property that I'd like to do an open house for. And this is by far one of the cheapest ways to get high quality leads, because to do an open house is basically zero cost. It takes about 2 hours of time. I do them for 2 hours. But yeah, so my gosh, if you have not signed up for the 3-day event, sign up for it. We go over the 12 different ways I get leads. We go over my buyer presentation, my seller presentation. And it's all about creating an ELF business, easy, lucrative, and fun. And it's taught by me, somebody that's actually still selling real estate. And as of yesterday, I'm at a little over 376 million in closed transactions. So, yeah, beautiful. Oh, and it comes with the 300-to-1 guarantee, which is pretty sweet. Meaning, like by the end of that 3rd day, if you don't have a clear picture on how you can add $300,000 of income to you within 12 months, you just let me know. By the end of that 3rd day, I refund you back that, I think it's $1,000 or whatever it is that you paid to attend. Keep all the material, we part as friends, and away we go. So, all right, now that that's out of the way, you guys have, we got like 22 minutes left, so ask me any questions you want on anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the promise guarantee, we have, this means I'll ensure that all of the 381 steps in the real estate process are handled properly for you. Well, I know there's a lot of processes. I haven't actually counted them all.
Yeah. So someone challenged me once. They're like, hey, count them all. And so I did. And of course, oh my gosh, for those of you who know me, I'm not techie, but I had them all typed up somewhere on my computer. And of course, I can't find the dang thing now. So yeah, I can look somebody in the eye and say, yeah, there's 381 because it was painful jotting them all down. But if you're not comfortable with that, you could say, hey, this means I'm going to ensure that all the hundreds of steps in the process will be handled. And the steps in the process are like, even like once we get well, okay, take a listing, for example. Step 1 would be like, you get the listing call somehow, some way. Step 2 is like, you answer the call. Step 3 is you set up a time to meet with them. Step 4 is you probably do some homework ahead of time. Step 5 is you drive to their house. Step 6 is you meet them at their house, you walk through their house, right? Step 7, and then usually it's by like step 120, if I recall right, is like where the offer comes together. And there's usually like 20 steps before that, where it's like you get an offer, you got to then call your seller, the seller's got to ponder it, they call you back, you then meet them to sign it, it's a counter offer, it goes, oh my gosh, it's like a lot of steps.
Oh, I know there's a lot of steps. I just didn't know there was over 300. It sure seems like even more than that sometimes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. 381 to be exact. And I should probably go through and recreate it again. It was painful the first time. So, but hey, no pain, no gain. So I should probably do it again. But yeah, and then I'd like negotiate for you. So for me, it's really important to say like, I'm going to treat your money like it's my money. That's what I mean by negotiation. And so we got to understand Joe Q Public really doesn't like realtors. Like my little brother, he always tells me, he's like, I'd love to sell my house. I just don't want to use a realtor. I'd love to buy a house. I just don't want to use a realtor, which is why Zillow has become so popular, along with Realtor.com, Truly, and these other sites, is because Joe Q Public is like, yep, I get it. We still got to use a realtor, but let's spend, that was a funky sound. Let's spend the first 3 months of our process doing it on our own, so we don't have to be encumbered with a realtor. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so when I come at it with, hey, here's my 3 promises, I'm gonna be on time. And then I go into the definition of that. Because everybody says they're on time, just very few people are, right?
Right.
And for me, being on time is like, it's just kind of respectful, right? If I'm a half hour late to something, that means something else must have taken my effort, energy, whatever it is. And so part of that, oh gosh, we don't have enough time to go on it today, but part of that is, okay, we're probably trying to do too much, right? We're probably trying to be super duper realtor with a cape on the back, trying to solve everybody's problems. And it's like, wow, let's get really focused and let's go and do the freedom multiplier, right? Which is an exercise we go over at the 3-day event, which is really simply 4 questions. And these 4 questions are going to save you hundreds of hours and a headache, because it gets you laser focused on like, who is your ideal client? Does that make sense? So that when I get leads coming in, and I really haven't checked, I've had kind of a busy day today, but I've probably gotten 4 incoming leads, if not more today. I might not even call back them, because they might be leads of a price point that doesn't even fit my ideal client. Does that make sense? Where another realtor might be like, well, I'm spending whatever it is, $1,700 a month on these leads. I'm going to call every single one. And to me, I go, okay, if I invest my time mentally and emotionally into working with a $200,000 buyer, I'm taking away my time here on my ideal calendar where I got to spend 26 hours reaching out to people. And I might find a $800,000 buyer, but because I'm working with 4 of them at $200,000, it's like I can't even mentally handle taking another one. Does that make sense? And it's like this. It's this big hamster wheel that just gets more challenging and more challenging as time goes on. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions?
No, not a question. I'm in the hamster wheel right myself. That's where I'm trying to get out of.
Yeah. Well, so the biggest thing, and we'll talk about it tomorrow because Paul's part of the Freedom Club. So I'm going to send you the time where we're going to meet, but you're going to be in a group with yourself, John, who's also on the call. He's the guy with the looks nice in his suit and his tie. And then Luca. He's out of Colorado. But yeah, so you three are going to be in the same group. And all three of you are new within the last 5 days into the Freedom Club, which will be great. But we're going to just really dive deep into this to make sure that we're doing the proper 26 hours of outbound conversations with people and doing it with no guilt, no shame, no fear. And very quickly, you're going to be able to have a result just like Yashu or Gene or Dan or Maureen or Jeff, where you're starting to work more with your ideal client instead of just working with people that kind of want to work with you, which is a big difference. Does that make sense? And people sometimes say, well, Jonathan, you can do that because like you're at this certain level. And it's like, well, no, I did that beginning on. That's why I'm at where I'm at. Does that make sense? At some point, you got to just put a line in the sand that says this is the minimum. Just like Apple Computer, right? So Apple Computer, they got this phone, and someone could walk into Apple and say, well, you know, we want to pay you $100 for the phone. And Apple could go out and create a new version that's $100, but Apple pretty much says no, right? We have a 7 Plus, I think it is, and a 7, and one is, I'm going to guess, $700, and one is $500. And that's it. And if somebody's like, well, but Apple's discriminating, it's like, no. I mean, if you have 500 and you buy a phone, great. If you don't have $500, then we can't sell you a phone. Does that make sense? It's kind of business 101, but it's challenging when you're doing this day in and day out as realtors, and especially when we're doing it where we're surrounded by other traditional realtors. Does that make sense? There's only probably 200 realtors in all of America who have even heard of my signature system. So like, if you go and talk to other realtors in your office about it, you're not going to get a lot of support. Does that make sense? Because they're going to say, oh, you know what? You should run some Facebook ads. You should do Twitter, Twatter, LinkedIn, Blinked-in, whatever the latest, greatest is. And it's like, yeah, if you want to attract not high quality leads, those are good ideas. So yeah, Alex had a question. Gosh, you typed it in, Alex, and I didn't read fast enough. So do you mind typing it in again, and I'll answer it. And while we're waiting for Alex, does anybody else have any other questions? I think Alex was having a question. Can you explain the Freedom Club, please? Oh, okay, the Freedom Club. Okay, so there's 2 things I do. One is a 3-day event. It's in San Diego, and the next one is October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. During that 3-day event, I explain exactly how I went from 0 to now 376 million in sales. And it has a 300-to-1 guarantee, meaning you come to the event, if you don't see how you can make an additional 300,000 of income, By that end of that third day, you let me know. I refund you back 100% of what you paid, which is, I think, $1,000. The second thing I do is the Freedom Club. And this is, this allows, when people belong to this, you have to apply to it. And you fill out a 6-page application. We talk on the phone. And you can come to the 3-day events, as many of them as you want. And then also the day before, we usually hang out at my house. And we talk about the last 90 days, what worked, what didn't work for you. And we talk about what we want to focus on the next 90 days. And that's usually from like noon to question mark. And we also have some fun and play ping pong and all that kind of good stuff too. But anyway, the Freedom Club is where I meet with realtors every Monday that are in it. We call it Monday Mastery. And I go over one topic really, really deep, and we role play it. So for instance, it might be open houses, and we role play, okay, how does this actually work? Because it's one thing me talking about it, and it's another thing when like you actually start doing it. And then on Wednesdays, I do a small group accountability call. And what that is it's with myself and 3 other realtors. Take that back, myself and 4 other realtors. So it's up to 5 people. And you're in that group for about 90 days, and then we rotate the groups. And we are crazy focused on results, which starts with the ideal calendar, which leads to the lead and IC tracker, which leads to what are you doing on a daily basis, which leads to the celebration form, and that's all part of the green machine, I call it. And the goal of that group is for you to build with my proven, simple, complete signature system an ELF business, which is easy, lucrative, and fun, which I've now had for 12 years. My first 2 years, I had what I call a half business, which is very hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And that's where I told my wife, I'm like, I got to either quit real estate or I got to find a different way to do this. Because I was working 100 hours a week, and that was probably an understatement. I was probably working more than 100 a week, working with anybody and everybody that had a pulse. And wow, that was tough. That was tough. And I'm a stubborn guy. I'm German and Polish. So how about that combination? So like I lasted 2 years thinking it was going to get better, right? And then I finally had to like look at myself in the mirror and go like, I need help, right? I need to create a different way of doing residential real estate, because the typical, I could show you my bookshelf, right? I have some real estate books on there. You guys have probably read some of them. They just don't work, right? They're written by people who either own the real estate company, which means, of course, they want you to sell more real estate, or they're written by somebody who's a good professional, polished speaker, but has maybe never sold real estate. And that's why I started doing what I do, because I got so frustrated with other real estate coaches and trainers telling realtors how to do it. No offense to even some like local branch managers, but I don't know if you guys were like me. My branch manager, I loved her to death, but she hadn't sold real estate for a decade, you know? So to me, that's just tough, right? That's probably not the best way to learn a proper way to do something. Oh, Alex, good question. What does it cost? Okay, so the investment is, well, one, if you're interested, text me, and I'll connect with you about it. I'll give you my cell phone. It's 858-212-1245. 858-212-1245. What does it cost? It's $18,000 for the year, or it's $4,900 per quarter. And I tell people it's a year commitment. And in reality, it's a 5-year commitment. It's like going to college, right? Yeah. And it's a complete proven signature system because it's the same thing that I do day in and day out. I've had people who are 18 years old put it into practice. I've had people who are 19. And my oldest client right now, well, the oldest client I've ever had on my real estate group put into practice, she was 82. And a new realtor at that, which is pretty awesome to see. But currently, I think Dan McGinnis is my oldest guy, and I think he's 70s, give or take. So, yeah. And the cool thing about it, you don't have to be good with your verbal skills. You don't have to look like George Clooney. You don't have to be slim. It doesn't matter. The public doesn't care, right? The public, it's all about providing the right value to the public, which generally means, going back to these things here, getting out of our own way, right? And many times guilt, shame, and fear stop us. And I'm a big believer of life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'll give you one quick life example. So back when my oldest daughter, who's now a junior in college, she was in 3rd grade, and she was wanting to try out for the church, like, special singing group. And she was like, Dad, gosh, I want to do this. And I was like, oh, that's cool, Jamie, do it. And she's like, yeah, but what if I don't make it? I'm like, well, then don't make it. And she's like, yeah, but, like, what if I try out and I don't make it? And I said, well, let me think about this. Then you don't make it. But I said, if you don't try out, Jamie, you're guaranteed not to make it, right? And so it's like, and then she's like, well, how should I try out? I'm like, I don't know, what is this again? And she's like, well, it's a singing thing. I said, oh, okay, well then, if it's a singing thing, I guess I recommend that you sing. And she's like, well, what should I sing? I'm like, I don't know, what's one of your favorite songs? She named the song. I'm like, perfect, that sounds great. I'd sing that. And then she's like, well, how should I sing? I'm like, well, I don't really know anything about singing, but I would do this. I would sing like nobody's listening to you. Like, sing like you do when you're in the shower, right? That's when you're putting your heart and soul into it. I would sing like that. And she tried out. She made it. But even if she wouldn't have made it, it would have been a good experience, right? And it kind of goes back to this no guilt, no shame, no fear. Like, gosh, for those of you who have signed up for the 3-day event, and even for those of you newer in the Freedom Club, tomorrow, Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning, we'll hop on a bonus call, and we'll go over talking to our database. And I hate that word, database. But talking to people that already know us, like us, and trust us. And we'll go over the exact dialogues that I use on page 49, 50, and 51. And I'm telling you, there is so much great business in people that already know you, like you, trust you. But it's going to cause, well, to accomplish it, you're going to have to get over your own guilt or your own shame or your own fear of calling them. Does that make sense? Because some of us maybe haven't talked to some of our friends for like 7 years, or some of us might feel weird or shameful about asking them for help or for business. But I'm telling you, people that know you, like you, trust you, they really, 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 really want to help you out. You just have to ask for it. Does that make sense? And that is, so I was just in Minnesota this last weekend, and it was for a wedding, but they also had the Ryder Cup there. For those of you who golf, that's this kind of once every 4-year golf tournament between USA and Europe. And what's really cool this year is that they asked players who were not selected to be part of the group to come and help coach and mentor. So like people like Tiger Woods, people like Bubba Watson, who are generally known to be the most non-helpful golfers on the PGA tournament, showed up for an entire week and were helping coach, mentor, and train the players, even though they felt a little miffed that they weren't selected to be part of the actual Ryder group, right? Well, how did that all occur? Because the coach, Davis Love III, got out of his shame and got out of his fear and said, you know what? I'm going to call these golfers up and ask them to come spend a week and tell them the pay is $0 and they don't, I'm not asking them to be part of the Ryder group team, but they get to be part of the team as a coach, right? And so Davis Love III faced a lot of rejection, but he did it anyway, and voila. So I just think that's great. Davis Love III would make a great realtor because he's willing to make the phone calls that the traditional realtors don't want to make. But I'm telling you, it's not like we're calling our expireds or physicals. Those are hard calls. All we got to do is call the people that already know us, like us, and trust us. So, all right, beautiful guys. Have a great day. If you haven't signed up for the 3-day event, do it. If you want to know more about the Freedom Club, reach out to me, 858-212-1245. And gosh, I'm glad that we got to Travis, Rick, Karen, probably Brian. Glad you guys are on the call. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. And then John and Paul, I'll send you guys out the link as well. If you can make this bonus call at 9:30 in the morning, that'd be really good for you. And
10 o'clock.
huh?
I have a 10 o'clock tomorrow morning I mentioned to you yesterday.
Oh, well, good for you. I'll send you the replay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and then I'll send out to you the time that we're meeting every Wednesday going forward.
All right, very good.
All right, rock stars, have a great day.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, see ya.
See you,
Bye.
buddy.
Thanks.